Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I don't know what time it is where you are, but right now it is time for more insight. And this is insight you can trust because there is more where it came from. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you for joining me. Make sure you follow, like, subscribe. Make sure you all lock in with me. Make sure y'all help me grow this channel. Make sure y'all help me do what we're trying to do, man. But today, I got somebody on today with me who didn't just pull up to the country club. He brought the cookout with him. Kenneth Duncan. He is the CEO of Renegade Golf. Forbes has seen it. Golf Channel has talked about it, but more importantly, the culture recognizes it. The culture feels it. So we're gonna take a walk down the fairway, y'all. We're gonna get on some greens and see how we got here. So how you doing today, Kenneth?
Good, good. How you doing today?
I'm doing well. Is it all right if I call you Ken?
That's perfect. Now, my dad's name has been Ken for the longest time, but I've transitioned as I've gotten older into being a Ken. So I have my first baby coming in a couple weeks, so I think I'm gonna be Ken pretty soon. Like it feels like the right time to transition. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the right time. Congrats on that. I did see that you are soon to be a father. How
Yes.
does it feel?
I don't know if we're ready yet per se. Get everything ready. The business has me across the country. Getting the house
Yeah.
together, different stuff. So I think give it 2 weeks and ask me again. I'll have a better answer probably.
I got you, man. I'm gonna hold you to it, man. I'm 3 years in.
Yeah.
The only advice I'll have for you as a father, um, when your wife delivers, make sure you take care of her. She's gonna have the baby taken care of. Of course, you're gonna be there. You're gonna support, but make sure she's taken care of. That's when women have to be protected from themselves the most, in my opinion, because strong women, man, strong black women, they think they're superwoman. So sometimes you got to tell them, hey, I know you're superwoman, but even you got to take the cape off a little bit. Just take the cape off for a little while, and kind of rest. But that's my only advice. Other than that, you got it.
I've heard that a couple times actually, so I definitely keep that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Before we get started into everything, I always ask this question because I love what people say. This phase, this chapter in your life, if you could name it any movie, this is your movie, this is your title. You're the director, you're the producer, you run it. What is the name of the movie that's attached to this phase in your life?
When you say life, I don't know if we're talking renegade or talking life, but
We'll
I
go
think
life.
I think life. I would say priorities first. Priorities first. I think that still figuring out what that necessarily means. But when you start talking about marriage, kid,
Hmm.
business, all of those different things are extremely important to me. Have long been a part of my goal and vision for my life. But how do you stack those and prioritize them in a necessary manner on a day to day basis? It won't be the same thing every day. It's really fluid. But keeping priorities first. And some days it'll be purely my baby boy Camden. Some days, like you said, and a wife. Some days it's Renegade. But keeping the priorities first.
There you go. I love it. Priorities first. That's a message to me because I just posted today that my 9 to 5 expects more from me than I want to give them because clearly I'm using company time to do things that I'm passionate about. um,
Yeah, I get it.
yeah, man. So, I took a little early lunch. And then, this will go into lunch. And then, it is what it is, man. I got to do what I got to do because
Yeah.
I don't want my 9 to 5 to always be my 9 to 5. Um, but let me ask you this. Um, Obviously, you're the CEO of Renegade Golf, which tells me that you're into golf. So when did golf first grab you?
Yeah, so I'm a first tee baby. So I started in the first tee program. My
Hmm.
mom and dad weren't together, so I would visit Georgia every summer from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And the first tee was just one of many summer camps I became a part of. So I kind of came in the golden era of first tee in Atlanta, John A. White Park. Coach Lewis, who was a golf coach at Morehouse at the time. A lot of people who have since come through there who've done amazing things, Earl Olajuwon, etc. So first tee was kind of where it birthed my interest in golf, at about 10 years old. And since then, I've moved from just being recreational, playing in high school, exploring playing in college, and then a long way after playing in college, potentially actually starting a golf company.
Oh man, that's a great journey. So let me ask you this: was it love at first swing, or did it have to grow up on you when you were in the first T program?
I think there was a little bit of love at first swing because my dad played golf. So my dad was
Okay.
a golfer prior to me playing. And I think whenever you can find, 4 to 5 intimate hours with your dad on a weekend in the summertime, it's a pretty good experience. So obviously, he was a basketball player. He played college basketball as well. So I think there was obviously a connection between us and him, or me and him for basketball. But I think golf was just that really unique, intimate time with my dad where we could go out and play. He beat me for a really long time, so you kind of have that challenge. They're going to compete against him. I think that made it more of a love affair. But it wasn't necessarily me loving to compete early on, but it was me being a part of playing with him.
I'm glad you said that because that's going to give me inspiration. I've tried to take my son, he's 3 years old. I've tried to take him to a golf course a couple of times. We do all right with the putting, but man, all he wants to do is get on the cart, get out the cart, and just play in the sand.
In the sand.
He wants to be a sand baby. So
Yeah.
I am going to wait a little bit to take him out and like try to teach him how to
Mhm.
play. Right now, he's all over the place.
Okay, interesting.
So, but I am inspired because eventually you got into golf, you fell in love with it, and I'm hoping the same happens to my son Kari. So, thank you for that. Now, you go from playing golf. How did you get into the business of golf?
Yep. Pretty much by accident, honestly. My business partner and I, or my prior business partner, he and I were really, really good friends in college. And in 2019, this was really the hype of that. I don't know if you're familiar with the Amazon wholesaling phase everybody had.
Yes.
You could buy some products, you put them on Amazon, you flip them, make a
Hmm.
product. It was a really, really lucrative time. Amazon was exploding. And we saw a lot of opportunity for a variety of products, not just golf balls or bags, etc. So we sourced and scoured the internet for products. People were using Jungle Scout and things of that nature. We used all that. And one product that seemed like a ripe opportunity to source cheaper than what was being sold in the country and selling it was golf bags. So we actually started a company manufacturing golf bags from China and saying, hey, can we sell this bag for $120 versus the $200 people are selling it at? Make a very strong margin, and it'll be one product in our an expansive portfolio. But instead of us white labeling,
Hmm.
instead of us taking another brand, we said, let's create a brand, let's create a name from it. So we sourced the name, Renegade kind of became this company that was born from it. Ironically, my fraternity name, line name is Renegade, so it wasn't related to that, but it had some sentimental connection there.
For sure.
And we started running with this idea of wholesaling products there. But it wasn't a company at that point. It really was a product within a larger portfolio of our vision of doing Amazon wholesaling. Um, and over time, it started to develop and turn itself into something that was more closely connected to what I was missing in the game of golf, specifically playing, feeling like there was a sense of representation in the sport. And when we're doing our marketing and our advertising of this product we're selling, how we come off to the end consumer. And a company was kind of born from that.
I'm glad that you said that because one of the things when I started playing golf is that I wanted to feel connected to something. So essentially, at that time, I started a clothing line up to par. Didn't turn out like I wanted to, but it's all good. But I was able to find different companies who are actually doing it on a greater scale, and I'm happy for them. But you also found yourself in a different lane. You didn't go the apparel lane to begin with. You went with golf bags, and now you have the golf ball. So what made you go golf ball?
Yeah, so I mean, I'll walk you through the entire story because a lot of it, when we started with the bags,
Hmm.
the mission was really to make golf more affordable, more accessible while promoting inclusivity. And when you
Yes.
think of what that looks like visually, and you look at a golf commercial, you're not typically seeing representation of all the different
Right.
individual minority groups. And my three M's traditionally moved into minorities, moms, and millennials. So these were three M's, three groups that I felt like were traditionally not being represented as equally in golf as maybe the majority would be. And I thought that our company had an opportunity to represent and appeal to them in a way that they haven't been appealed to before. So
Hmm.
that's what we meant there. And the golf bags were an attempt at doing that. We spent a lot of time doing customization of Greek fraternities, Greek sororities, connecting with, African American, males and females who were
Yeah.
involved in golf and who were at a high level in their professional careers. And ironically enough, an individual who actually had purchased one of our golf bags connected to and identified with our mission, with our vision, and what we were doing from a marketing standpoint, and said, "Hey, I actually have previously worked at Titleist and Callaway in R&D supply chain for golf balls, and I would love to be a part of your project if you're considering golf balls."
Hmm.
At the time, we were because we learned some different things in the golf bag space, but starting a golf ball company is not as simple as sourcing a product from China via Alibaba, like a golf bag.
Right.
Um, there's a lot of R&D required in it, the materials or raw materials that go into it, the quality with that, the production processes, making sure you have redundancies in your manufacturing. All of those things are a little bit different from golf bags. So we had a
Mhm.
big head start with the individual who had been in that industry for so long, who also just so happened to be a black male who saw an interest in what we were doing. So from there, we really moved into the golf ball space intentionally with a plan in place to be at one of the highest quality golf balls at a great price point. Um, and that's what we ended up doing. So our first golf ball at Embu was a ball that was manufactured, really in the same manufacturing facility that you see golf balls coming from Callaway and other large brands. But we were very convinced that we were going to, and convicted to the fact that we were going to price that ball at a place that still kept our core audience feeling included, feeling that they have access to the ball and that they could play and respond to the brand like they were with the golf bags.
Oh man, that's that story right there. It's why you're being blessed like you are, because of the intentionality behind it, but also because of the passion that you have for it. You stated that you wanted to see inclusivity into the sport of golf. What is one thing that you would say to the golf world that hasn't been said?
I think what hasn't been said is that golf is what we make it. I think while there
Mm,
are a lot of traditions and a lot of things that make golf, historically relevant and we connect to the past, as we bring new golfers into the space, we can start to evolve with the game and the game will evolve with us. I don't know that I necessarily
perfect.
subscribe to the fact that we have to make it something super hip hop, connected, or it has to be super, etc. But I think there's opportunity for us to make the game what we want it to be.
Right.
All of us are not playing on the PGA Tour. It's okay to have a couple drinks on the golf course. It's okay to have, smoke on the golf course. It's okay to listen to music on the golf course. I think common respect is required anywhere. Being respectful of how you're drinking, you're smoking, you're listening to music, but you can make the experience what you like it to be. And I think that golf tends to represent itself in a certain way, and I think people tend to represent themselves in a different way. And we can find the intersection of those two things if we want to.
I'm so glad that you said that because when I first started golfing, I knew the rules, but I didn't know the rules. I'm definitely a person who does not like to tuck in my shirt. So fortunately, I'm at golf courses where I don't have to do that.
Yeah.
I really can't stand it. Neither here nor there. Um, Let me ask you this: because of the business that you're in, what are some of the things that people don't see during the business process that have been the most challenging?
I think probably one of the most challenging people is not realizing, how difficult it is to, I don't want to say please, but really please everybody. And when you think
Yeah.
about golf balls, there's a large variety of an assortment within each brand for a good reason. When you start looking at junior golfers, female golfers, senior golfers, professional players, each of them have a unique proposition that they're looking for from their products. Some are looking for performance, some are looking for price, some are looking for a highest level performance. So my swing speed is X, I need this core compression. It's very difficult to build a product that fits all those different profiles. So
Mm-hmm.
being very intentional about who we're specifically working towards and targeting and making sure that we're putting out a product that reaches the largest number of people first. And if we're not going to be reaching a large audience, being very specific at targeting that audience, we can see sales from it. So to put it in real world terms, how many SKUs can we get out of golf balls to get the most number of people?
Yeah.
Um, if you put out a tour quality ball, but 5% of people need to be playing a tour quality ball, you don't really have a huge market opportunity there. If you put out a $15 dozen ball, like, the Pinnacle, for example, that everybody buys, the red box Pinnacle, we all know it. It's got like 18 balls in it or something like that.
Right.
Offering like that, and you have a large market opportunity. So I think that there's a lot of back and forth on making sure you have the right products for the right people. It's really hard to please everybody. So
And you
as we
never
grow,
will.
we try to. I mean, Titleist does probably. I mean, quite frankly, when you
Yeah.
have 12 different SKUs of golf balls, Pro V1, 1X, AVX, Pro V1X Left Dash, Tour Soft, True Feel. We got that many SKUs and variety. You do have the ability to have something for everybody, but a startup company really is going to struggle to do that and probably shouldn't do that because you stretch yourself too thin.
Man. So even with stretching yourself too thin, do you feel like because of who you are what you represent, do you feel like the game has tried to box you in? The game of golf or the business of golf have tried to box you in?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I didn't know going into the golf ball space specifically, and I probably should have known this, is just how dominated it is by the larger OEMs. I
Hmm.
mean, when you look at Titleist and Callaway alone, that's roughly, close to 70-ish%, maybe if not more, of all golf ball sales are two companies. And when you start adding in other household names we're familiar with, your Bridgestones, your TaylorMades, and your Srixons, you've now hit 90+% market share. There's not a lot of room for Snell, Vice, Kirkland, Renegade, you know, Max Fly to all fit in that 10%. Now,
Right.
luckily, that 10% is hundreds of millions of dollars, but that is still 10%. And when you start looking at golf shops, and you start looking at golf retailers, a lot of them still play in that 90% space. So there is a lot of challenge to be one of the individuals and one of the companies in that 10% trying to break into that 90. And there's a lot of politics in it too. When you look at how the
Oh, for
industry
sure.
been constructed, the industry is really built around the PGA model. So we have PGA professionals. These people tend to have staff agreements and connections to large companies. They use those staff agreements to staff their golf courses and run the golf courses. Move on from there. There's no inherent problem with that until an outsider tries to break that cycle or break into that cycle. And then where is there room for the outsider to fit into the ecosystem?
Essentially, it sounds like the grandfather clause, like they're grandfathered into a world that you're trying to get into.
Yeah.
But I know that you have a great product. So when did you know that Renegade Golf had something special? When did you know, like, was it a DM? Was it a post? When did you know you had something special?
Honestly, I think we knew we had something special when we started to get the first reviews coming back for our product.
Mm,
Obviously, we tested it. I've done a lot of individual testing, a lot of friends, but when you start having the people that purchase it, if you look at our reviews on our website, I mean, we probably average 4.85 to 4.9 stars. Now, if you look at, having hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of reviews,
mhm,
companies don't tend to maintain that off of a fluke. So
for
once you get
sure.
about, 40 to 50 in, and you're seeing consistently that people that you don't know are saying, this is really good. Now you've got something. When you have your friends and your family saying, this is dope, this is great, you kind of feel like maybe there's a little bit of a bias they have. But when you
Right.
have individuals from across the country who you've never met giving you 5-star reviews on a product they don't have to give reviews on at all, I think that gives a lot of validation that, hey, like, we're here.
Man, excuse me. Um, so with that, and I know we talked about essentially the grandfather clause and where you are now and how you know you had a special product. How do you balance like honoring the game, but still opening up the doors for more people to come in that look like you and I?
I don't feel the need to honor the game. I don't think the game has given
Mm,
us a whole lot. What we've gotten in the game, we've taken. And when I look at the historical figures who have gone into the space, they really transcend it in spite of what the game of golf and what people who run the game of golf have given them. When you look at, what Charlie Sifford had to endure, what Lee Elder had to endure, what Ted Rose had to endure, just to have an opportunity to prove they were better. And they a lot of times were better than their counterparts just to prove it. I don't feel like I necessarily owe the game anything. I feel like I owe it to the people who left a legacy before me, the Siffords, the Tiger Woods, people like that, to continue to build upon what we've done in the space. And being the first ever black-owned golf ball company is doing that. We've really never been in equipment. You talked about apparel earlier, and I
mhm,
don't downplay any brand that's gone into apparel because that's a difficult space as well.
for sure.
The barriers to entry in apparel, they say, okay, y'all like clothing and shoes and fashion, like y'all go do that. The
Mhm.
barriers that exist for equipment and the barriers that we want to break down are significant and still exist there because of how much influence the larger OEMs have in the space. So I don't
Yeah,
really feel like we've done our job where I can rest until we've broken some of those barriers to a point where there's more room for companies like ourselves to be in the space.
man. Hey, man, you are cooking right now. Uh, One of the things that I love about your social media on Renegade, there's a hashtag that I see frequently, define the status quo or defy the status quo. What does that mean to you beyond branding?
I think when you look at the fact that we've accepted what golf is for so long. We've accepted that this is golf. Golf
For
is
sure.
tuck your shirt in, it's country club, it's expensive, it is white dominated, and that is how it's going to be.
Hmm.
We have, through our dollar, the opportunity to shift that narrative to what we collectively, when I say we, I'm not just speaking African Americans, but millennials, moms, minorities, and our white counterparts as well, to shift that narrative to what we want it to be, and for brands that stand for something more than just tradition. And I think that that's where we are. Defying the status quo is this traditional game has been how it is for hundreds of years. And we have an opportunity to defy that and stand behind a brand that symbolizes more than just traditional values.
Man. And with that, being that you are defying the status quo, that means you're changing what the future of the sport looks like. You're changing the business of golf. So what does
Absolutely.
that next chapter of Renegade Golf look like for 2025 and beyond to you?
Absolutely. I mean, for us, I want to bring more companies along the ride with us. When we start looking at the ecosystem that exists and looking what a Cushnet and Callaway brands that I have a lot of reverence for. I'm not
Mhm.
speaking negatively about them at all.
Right, for
They
sure.
built a lot of complementary products that have helped to make their name even more increase. And Callaway with Top Golf was one way, a Cushnet with FootJoy, and having the different brands under a Cushnet, so now they can do shoes and bags and balls. So I'd love to start to build that within the Renegade ecosystem.
Hmm.
Right now, we do very light apparel, but it's not something that we spend a lot of time and energy on. And I
Right.
don't want to spend a lot of energy on that because there are other dynamic brands that do that can bring that to what we do, and we can both benefit each other.
Hmm.
Similarly, if we're talking about shoes, and maybe it's Eastside Golf, maybe it's another person that comes up, where we have shoes that we can offer that are, from us. So I think that's where I envisioned a lot of things going this year is really, really meaningful partnerships, working on some now where we can start to find some collaborations and to build up an ecosystem that we can benefit each other across the way.
I don't think Issa Rae knew what she was doing when she told us, or when she did an interview and she said, it's okay to network laterally. We're trying to network vertically and horizontally so much that we're missing the people that we can just reach across and just grab their hand instead of reaching up. And I
And
love
that
that
was
you said
probably
that.
one thing, like that was, and I've never said this live on camera, but so it was interesting. Like that was one thing, a lot of people reached out to me when Eastside did a drop with Bridgestone.
Hmm.
And when I thought about it a lot, that I think that concept you just mentioned is a big part of that. Like,
Hmm.
you know, there obviously is a lot of value to be driven from Eastside partying with the brand. It's a
For sure.
multi-billion dollar brand who's been in the golf space for a long time. I think there's additional value that could have been unlocked by Eastside and Renegade coming together and making a large, bold statement. I can't speak to the dollar value of that deal or speak to the motivation behind all that different stuff, but that question has been asked me a lot of times, and I don't really know exactly where everybody's motivation lies for that one. But
Right.
it's an interesting thought process you meant there, where it is okay to work, horizontally versus vertically. And that was one example of that where I thought about it. I was like, man, like how do I feel where brands or tournaments or whatever they decide, hey, I'd rather go get my balls from Titleist or from Callaway or from Bridgestone. I'm like, yeah, I guess that's fair and it makes sense in a lot of ways, but we have a lot of ability to make significantly more impact if we do decide to kind of do some of that networking horizontally. So
So let me ask you this. How can folks get involved, whether they're golfers, creatives, or just culture lovers? How can they get involved with Renegade Golf?
I think the biggest thing that we look for is just an introduction to your city. And when I think about places that we might have fans and customers and loyalists, it's hard to narrow it down. I just mentioned that we're coming to the city of Memphis to start a distribution of all their golf courses this year. We did the same thing with city of Detroit. We've also brought golf balls now into the city of Charlotte. Obviously, we're in Atlanta, so there's a lot of metro hubs that we've determined are logical launch pads for us. We're already in the city of Dallas, or at least in Cedar Crest, that is down in Dallas. We've identified these logical launch pads, but we might be missing some large opportunities and some launch pads in areas that actually really have a customer base that suits us and that or opportunity to grow the game there. And I think exposing us to that, sharing that with us and our team gives us an opportunity to be a step ahead of it, maybe further than we are right now. So if there's cities I didn't list there, like, hey, you probably have a good opportunity here, let us know. And I think that gives us an opportunity not to do as much legwork on our end.
Man, and it just reminds me that Jackson State, they're launching a golf team.
Yeah.
So these are potential collaborations that can happen, working with different HBCUs who have golf programs. I know Howard has one, and there are a few others. I just talked to a guy a few weeks ago who's in Michigan. Um, I can't even think of the school, but I know his name, Jaden Lacey. So shouts out to Jaden Lacey if you're watching this. Maybe you can reach out, Jaden, and see how you can be a part of Renegade and see how they can collab with you. And while we're on that point, I do see that you are collaborating with different athletes. First of all, what does that mean to you? Like, is that a moment of satisfaction? Like, we actually have people that represent us.
It's interesting. There's a lot more that we even have time to talk about. Athletes are nuanced because all of them, we both want different things potentially, or sometimes want the same thing. So a lot of athletes have a desire to go professional and to look at professional representation, having sponsorship, and a lot of brands want to get to the place where they have the ability to sponsor athletes, which requires revenue and income. And I think there's always this really like balancing act of like, well, I can support you now, but I need you to do more support for me now so that I can get the revenue to support you later. And I
Yeah.
think every brand goes through that. Haven't quite figured it out on what the proper balance is. There's
Mhm.
actually was a topic in a black golf group I'm a part of on social media recently. Like, smaller brands don't have a lot to offer monetarily to sponsor or
Yeah.
support, high performing athletes. When they do have the money, a lot of the high performing athletes go to a different brand. If you overextend early on, do you get the ROI for that athlete early on? And it's this big ebb and flow of that. So,
Yeah.
that's a whole nother nuanced conversation. I feel blessed and humbled that any person wants to represent our brand. And I don't say my brand. People say, oh, my golf ball. This is your Kenneth Duncan's golf ball company. Like, it's really our brand. It's a brand, for us, by us. Like, and if anybody wants to represent it, I'm honored and humbled. But I definitely think that there is additional conversations on figuring out how to provide the most value with limited resources early on. Um, and I think that conversation is going to continue to go even beyond this conversation today.
Absolutely. I'm going to take a moment to be selfish. You mentioned the other cities that you are partnering with, Michigan, um, the other state you said. I know Tennessee is a part of that, but more specifically, Memphis is.
Yep.
I live in Memphis, Tennessee right now. So tell me what's going on with the city of Memphis and what Renegade Golf is doing.
Good. So we think we have a huge opportunity in the city of Memphis. I spent close to a week there this year, specifically looking at the opportunity there and celebrating the fact that Memphis has a lot of diversity in the city. They have a very strong parks and recs program. So I think there's about 7 golf courses that are part. Some of them 9-hole courses, but 7 golf courses owned and managed by the city. And Renegade is working right now with the city to bring the golf balls into the golf courses. But that goes to where we talk about what we need help with. Like, we've got to now prove ourselves. They've the 7 courses, like, we can put you in the black ones to start, like, the ones that are closer to the city. Like,
Of
no, what
course.
about all of them? Well, the other ones have Callaway already there and they have Titleist, so we got to see how you perform. So that's where, our audience and our base standing up and really being like, vocal about their support makes a tremendous difference in the trajectory. Because they want to bring us into the courses, we'll be in there, but the number of courses is driven by, performance. So if we go in there and we're in one course and we're at Pine Hill in Memphis,
Yeah.
and Pine Hill has 2 sales in 2 months, we're not getting Galloway, we're not getting Audubon, we're not getting the more
That's
closest
so funny.
courses on the east side.
Yeah.
So I mean, we feel fortunate and blessed to be having those conversations. Mayor Paul Young's been amazing. City commissioner or COO of the city, Antonio Adams, met with him as well. And we would love to be in a position where we're servicing all 7 golf courses equally to what Callaway and Titleist are doing, which is close to 6 figures per year.
I know we have, and I know we have Edwin Watts here in the city of Memphis. Is
Yep.
there a potential collaboration to where they can be a distributor for Renegade Golf?
So retail is a little bit different when it comes to golf because a lot of times retail is owned at the parent level. So,
Yes.
if there's hundreds of Edwin Watts or dozens of them, generally speaking, buying's done at a parent level. So we currently sell golf balls in PGA Tour Superstore. We're in Carl's
Got it.
Golf Land. We actually launch into Walmart coming up next month in
Congrats.
May. Thank you. So like those things are like neat, but they kind of come from the parent level. And retail is also tricky because now you have a lot of distribution points that you need to find success in for that account to grow.
Yeah.
So we talk about Memphis. If we have a Edwin Watts or we have a PJ Superstore, or we have a Dick's Sporting Goods, we've had conversation with, have Walmart, they all got to eat too. So you
Gotta
need
eat.
people buying from each one of them at a volume and scale to where they want to increase your buy.
Hmm.
Um, any one of them you can do $1 million a year in. I'm sure Titleist does $1 million at PJ Tour Superstore annually, but there are customers going to PJ Tour Superstore. Similarly with Edwin Watts, you can do very well there, but are you taking people from PJ Superstore to do well there? So it's a very nuanced conversation. We've been blessed to find ourselves in a lot of retail environments, but retail requires you to have the inventory turns and moves for them to feel compelled to continue to buy. Um,
Man.
and that's a challenge that a lot of brands face. I even probably imagine that Eastside Golf is either right there or kind of just jumped that hurdle. How do we sell in Dick's? How do
Yeah.
we go ahead in Edwin Watts and perform well? We're in the airport shops. How do we see volume in those stores? I mean, it's not a simple question to answer. It's something that requires a lot of energy, effort, marketing, um, to kind of get to that end solution.
Maybe even some heavyweight investors.
That'll help.
Because I
That'll
would
help.
imagine I've worked in retail before. So I've seen, the Nike brands come in. Um, I've seen the boxes of stock come in. So now to request to be in those kind of stores or to even be in those stores, now you're looking at a bigger distribution. And what does that cost look like? You know what I mean? So I definitely understand it. I would be interested to see if Target is on that list.
Yep.
Um,
Target actually was really maybe our target company. Funny play of words. Prior to Walmart, we had an introduction to Walmart, which was phenomenal and on our list. We thought Target did match our core customer. For people going there looking for gifts for him, maybe a lot more women customers looking at maybe a slightly older demographic, which is playing golf. But I think that you also have, as a CEO, you have to look at where you distribute your products, and is that a statement on how you want your brand to be reflected in a marketplace. And when you start looking at brands like like Target, like Walmart, who have actively said, we no longer have the same value we placed on DEI, it does put us into some difficult, conversations within the company and within my own mind of thinking, how do we want to project ourselves and present ourselves when it comes to our distribution footprint? Are we now co-signing the decision by Target to de-emphasize DE&I and to
man,
put at risk, hundreds of Black brands? And if we succeed in Target, but hundreds of other brands that look like us fail, what did we say in our statement? And I think about that a lot. That's a part of, but that's a part of the other side of that coin that people don't think about is when you've now got to a place where have the ability to sell to retail and you've gotten that level of inventory. There's not a lot of places in the world you have the ability to offload it. Like if you got, tens
right.
of thousands of units and it's either going to Walmart or Target, I think sometimes customers expect you to say, well, we'll just close our doors before we sell to them. That's not really an option. We've got to move this
At
inventory.
all.
We've spent a lot of this money there. So I think it's an unrealistic expectation at times for some of our African American owned brands to just put up a strong boycott at the expense of their company, which I think is somewhat unfair and unrealistic. I think in an ideal state, we'd have a lot of the customers who are now boycotting Target or Walmart come directly to our websites and buy the product directly and then, replace that support with higher margins, I might add.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's necessarily what's been happening with all these boycotts and with the shift and the de-emphasis from DE&I. So I'd be curious if we are going to take up that challenge or if it'll more or less just end up being more status quo going forward.
Man. So let me ask you this. Renegade's been featured in Forbes and on the Golf Channel. are these moments that make you pause and like say, we really out here, like we really are doing essentially what we started out wanting to do.
I do wish that I had taken, and any advice I'd ever give other entrepreneurs is to take more time celebrating and internalizing those moments as they happen.
Hmm.
I remember the first time watching, an interview, and we've done a couple interviews on Golf Channel at this point, and features on their commercials, and never quite really like realized that this is what I prayed for and what I dreamed of probably, years ago when we started, and here it is. My lifelong dream was to be a Forbes 30 under 30 CEO, and I was close. I really was probably a year away from having true consideration, but
Man.
being in Forbes was an honor and really was a validation of what we were doing. And I regret not taking more time to, really internalize that. But I think what typically entrepreneurs feel is when the money's not coming, all that other stuff doesn't matter. So, our
Nope.
sales weren't in a place necessarily where I felt that we had reached a place where I wanted us to be. So I think a lot of the other achievements, quote unquote, were sort of diminished and not really held in the same regard as when we hit our first six-figure year, when we reached our $250,000 threshold. Those things I remember a lot more. When we get $1 million, that feels good. But I do wish I had internalized those more, because those were things that I did want to celebrate. But we have some more coming up too. We have some really cool things coming up with some large national networks, with some huge magazines in the Atlanta area. So it's not over yet, and I think when I have those opportunities again, I'll be more cognizant to appreciate them in a moment.
It is not over. Like you said, you're on to bigger and better things, and I know that you know now that when those moments come, just take that opportunity and smell the roses, embrace that moment.
Appreciate you. Thanks for asking the questions that some people haven't asked too. When we start getting deeper into looking at the
Mhm.
effect of DE&I, start looking at the collaboration across multiple brands. These are topics that sometimes can be a little bit taboo to have,
Oh, for
or
sure.
put on record. But I think it's impactful conversation, and I hope people get value from it as well.
Absolutely. I want to lean into a little bit more lighter topics. Um, and this is actually the first time I'm doing this. So this is my new segment. It's called 3 on 3. So essentially, I'm going to give you 3 questions. You'll give me your top three of each of those questions. All right.
Yep.
All right. I was going to do top 3 golf courses you've ever played, but because you're in Atlanta and I want to give those golf courses some love, what are your top 3 golf courses in Atlanta
That I played.
that you played?
So I was like, you got to take out Augusta and Peachtree,
Yeah, you got to.
naturally.
Have you? Side note: have you been to Augusta?
I've been to Augusta before, yes. No, I've never played, of course, but I've been to it. It is a cut above the rest. Ironically, this year, a lot of the courses I had on my list have been courses that I've gotten to play this year.
Hmm.
I still, I grew up playing Horseshoe Bend Country Club. It's up in
Mm,
Roswell, Georgia.
yeah.
I think it's honorable mention for. I have a lot of history there. It's a beautiful, beautiful course, but I think that's honorable mention.
Okay.
I'd probably say three probably comes in at Eastlake. The
Okay.
Eastlake, just the history. The course itself actually doesn't wow me per se, but I think
Mhm.
that the history of the course and everything that's there, just makes it so significant. Just seeing where all the great players play, kind of putting yourself in those
For
shoes.
sure.
Um, I'd probably say two. My other favorite is Rivermont Country Club. So Rivermont, it's up in Alpharetta area. Phenomenal course. Can be stretched all the way up to like
Sounds phenomenal.
7,500. It really is unconventional, kind of it's not the aesthetic that a lot of courses in the area have, but it's so
Mhm.
beautiful. And I just think that that's probably like gotta be number two up there. Number one, I think I played Atlanta Country Club is a really unique experience. Just a really, really pretty course, really well maintained. Played it relatively recently, and I just really, really enjoyed the course, the layout of it. I didn't play very well, but I think Atlanta Country Club might be my number one there. But I'm just counting those ones in Atlanta. No, I think when you get out to Reynolds Lake Oconee has some phenomenal golf out there.
Yeah.
I really, really enjoy, playing golf at Chateau Alon, playing Golf Club of Georgia, nice as well. But I think I go Rivermont, that's two, Atlanta Country Club there, and then Eastlake, probably top three. Right?
That's dope, man.
Yeah.
I have yet to play Chateau Elan. It's on my bucket list. It's a few of those courses that you named that's on my bucket list. So I got to make sure I make that happen.
Yeah.
Um, Your top three shows of all time.
Shows. I'd probably say they're relatively recent. I think that my number one's got to be Suits. Suits almost made me want to be a lawyer. Suits was it for me. My two, I guess, because I'm just into that. I guess I'm a business person at heart. I'm a business person. So two probably ends up being Succession. Really
On my
enjoyed the
list.
Succession, the business, different talk. And one is probably a throwback, but it just goes back to my childhood. It was Walker, Texas Ranger.
Really?
I wanted to be a police officer for a long time because of Chuck Norris and the brother in Walker, Texas Ranger. This just kind of has like this honorable mention of like, oh, this third place. Like it's got to be that historic show I had in there. Yeah, I think that I had to have room for Walker, Texas Ranger. If I was saying recent stuff, I watched the show Billions. Billions
Yeah.
was another like kind of
Wow.
business show that kind of really driven me. So I kind of like that more reality business driven stuff. So it'd probably be Suits, Billions, and Succession. But I gotta have some honorable mention for Walker, Texas Ranger in there as well.
I ain't even mad at it. I love some good nostalgia.
Yeah.
Suits is definitely one of my favorite shows of all time. It's turned into my comfort show.
Have you watched the
Strangely
reboot
enough,
at all yet? Have you watched LA or not?
man, I'm watching it.
Got you. And actually, I was not a fan early on, and I don't know if it was the fact that they brought Harvey back to it and they
Yeah.
kind of connected. I was like, actually, this is kind of getting good. It's different. Like they didn't try to really, really recreate. I thought the first couple shows they were trying to do what the old show did, and now I'm like, okay, this is truly, almost happening in parallel, and the connections are great. So like, okay, I see what y'all did here. I'm actually
Yeah.
liking that.
I'm starting to appreciate it. Like you said, I at first I was like, where is this going? I will say I think what makes it cool, Ted has the same inflections as Harvey. Like I can hear Harvey all in his dialogue. Um the other guy, I can't even remember his name.
Stewart.
Yeah, Stewart. He just
The Lewis lit vibe a little bit though. I think Lewis was easy to
that's the
hate for
goal.
a long time. I think that they were going for that and they did a fairly good job at it.
Hmm.
Lewis was easy to hate. I didn't like this guy, Stewart, very much, but like he has some redeeming moments where you're like, okay, like you're
Just
not
like Lewis.
well, just like Lewis, exactly. So
Lewis had the best character development, man.
yeah,
I love Lewis Lit.
yep,
Love Lewis Lit.
yep,
Hate him at the same time.
exactly. 100%.
All right. Now,
So,
here's the third one. When you go to the golf course, what are your top three snacks?
not really a snacker, honestly. So I mean, I'm probably saying an IPA, a whiskey cocktail,
There you go.
are the two snacks and a cigar.
There you
Um,
go.
so, you
I'm
know,
glad that you said that because I was teetering with where the three things you're gonna go to the golf course with or
yeah,
snacks. So you did it perfect. That's all good. Can you let the people know where they can support Renegade Golf, where they can find you, drop your social media handles, and if you want to, just give some shout outs.
yeah. So Renegade Golf, we're going nationwide. We're actually in 3 countries now, but love the support at Carl's Golfland, one of our best vending partners. PJ Tour Superstore locally in only 6 stores, mostly Atlanta, Charlotte, as well as Houston. But you can also find us on their website, which also does a lot for our brand and building up our relationship with them. Golfballs.com for any of your customized golf ball needs. You can go to golfballs.com and get anything logo from there. But outside of our major retail partners that we're building relationships with, and Walmart coming up, like I said, next month, Walmart.com as well. Look for us in your local golf shop. And if we're not there, reach out to your local golf shop and tell them we should be there. We can make that introduction. We can make that happen quickly. That's just a place where I think a lot of people should be finding us. If it's your local country club or golf shop, bring us in there, support with your foursome, and we'll make sure that it's worth your while. But I want to really just shout out, some people that helped us, kind of get there. So I don't know if a lot of people heard of Trisha Clark. Trisha Clark's been a lot of
Yes.
different golf things. Trisha was there from the very beginning, helping push and propel the brand when there was no marketing dollars to do so. So looking at people like that, those are the people that really help you build a company from scratch. I mentioned Mark Wingfield, who helped us do all the golf ball development, was really, really instrumental. And now just looking at, taking that next step forward, people like yourself, people who have reached out to us to amplify our story and our message, and who will eventually probably be a part of us, growing into the different cities like Memphis, like Detroit. Meg the golfer up in Detroit, working with her. D1 Golfs in Cleveland, Ohio, working with him. Like there's so many opportunities, and talk about influencers, but I really think that there's relationships with people but we have similar missions or visions, and we can take those to really take this thing to the next level.
Man, I love it. Let me talk to the people real quick.
Uh,
Hey, y'all. Stop buying these $50 Callaway balls. Stop buying these $50 Titleist ones. It ain't making your golf game no better. Here's another product that's affordable. You can go from $24.99 up to $37.99. You right in that range. You can't play golf no way. Support black business. Support Kenneth Duncan. Support Renegade Golf. Support our own. Because why wouldn't you? Help him grow. Help this business grow. Help us grow. Help us be seen in other places where we want to be seen. We're tired of being in white spaces and not feeling like we have access, or not feeling like we're not welcome. We are welcome, but let's also just grow. Let's help each other out. So that's my little rant.
Shirt I wear,
Build
it's my
black
favorite shirt,
business.
all black business. No, it's my favorite shirt. Like I said, I mean, there's a lot of amazing businesses out there, agnostic of
Mhm.
color and race, but I definitely think that we have something unique and special here that we can continue to break down barriers in the space, and I appreciate you being a part of that.
Absolutely. I'm making a commitment now. Last year I didn't play much golf. I played maybe 3 times, but this year I have made a commitment to play more golf. So I will make sure that I purchase Renegade golf balls from now going forward, because I need to support my own. I can't ask people to support, and I don't support my own. So I'm gonna go ahead and get my online order in, and I look forward to seeing them, playing with them, and I'll let you know how they are. I'll leave a customer review. You know, we don't like to leave reviews, but I will leave a review because I want to help you grow and I want to help you build.
Well, yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, y'all have heard it from the source himself. Ken is proof that you don't have to change the game to change the culture around it. You just have to move with purpose, and you have to stay rooted in who you are. So make sure y'all follow Renegade Golf on Instagram. If you need more information, type in Renegade Golf into google.com. It's a free app, google.com. You can type Renegade Golf in there. You can find everything that you need. You can find their shop. You can find their contact information. They have everything that you need to be as successful of a golf player as you want to be. But thank you all for tuning into more insight. This is insight you can trust, because there is more where it came from. Make sure you like, follow, subscribe, share with a friend, lock in. Y'all know how we do, and help us grow this channel. That's all we're trying to do. So until then, we'll see y'all next time.